Hello and welcome, everyone. I'm Matthew Resnay, founder of Prospect Future, a marketing and operations agency dedicated to helping businesses grow. Welcome to On the Reg. This is the podcast for entrepreneurs, business owners, marketers, and really anyone looking to enhance their digital productivity. Today, I'm joined by Andy Hawbaker. He has an extensive background in marketing and real estate, and we're going to talk about the intricacies of basically his career growth and how things have been going. Welcome.
Sweet. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, I'm glad to have you.
Yeah, absolutely. This is going to be fun.
This will be cool. So Andy's actually like a long time friend. We colleagues, plenty of happy hours, the whole 9 yards there. So we have a lot to talk about. Usually we do this off camera, but now's a great time to kind of get into the weeds and actually provide some value back to our listeners.
Absolutely. We've been lunchtime buddies for a long time.
Yeah.
So hopefully it translates to podcast.
So in terms of like your background, you did 6+ years of basically marketing, right?
Yeah.
Extensive experience. We had a very similar role at our old job,
Correct.
to where we were managing multiple accounts, lots of different budgets, lots of different strategies. And you decided to throw that all away and jump into real estate.
Right.
Tell me why.
It's kind of funny. And I do remember right after I told you, you were like, why real estate? Because that was like one of the hardest companies to market at that agency that we were working at. But truthfully, I've always loved real estate. I've always been interested in homes, and I've always thought it was interesting. Fresh out of college, I was pretty quiet. I would have had a hard time with it, but as I've gotten these life experiences, it became a no-brainer. That, and I've always wanted to be an entrepreneur.
Yeah.
My father owned a movie theater when I was a kid. Like from when I was like 4 until 12, for like 8 years, he had a movie theater. So I've always wanted to own my own business. And as I worked through careers, I ended up working for these small business owners. And, it was fun and exciting for a long time. I learned a lot about different types of businesses. But the goal was always to have my own. And real estate is something I was interested in. So it was kind of an easy transition for me.
I didn't know that. Did you have like an entrepreneurial spirit when you were younger at all? Like, were you doing things like eBay or lemonade stands or
Not
anything like
really.
that?
I mean, I did some lemonade stands and stuff, but it just was always something I wanted to do. If you asked me what I wanted to do when I grew up, first of all, I wanted to play for the Kansas City Royals. They never called me. So the next thing was I wanted to own my own business. But, I always thought I had to like come up with this idea and come up with this unique product and do something. I didn't want to just do like a franchise or something like that. But really, like, that's kind of how it all came around. Was I definitely want to open my own business. I want to run my own show. But I don't have the money for inventory or anything else.
Yeah.
I didn't have the big savings for that. And selling homes, you're kind of you're the agent in between, and you don't have to have that great idea. You don't have to carry the inventory or anything like that. So it was kind of to me, it all made sense that it was a good business to get into. But again, I always looked at being a realtor as my business and growing my business, and not just. I think a lot of realtors are thinking about themselves as salespeople and not building a brand and all those things. And I think that's where a lot of people go wrong.
Well, it's interesting because like I think the majority of people, and I might be completely wrong on this, but I feel like the majority of people don't think of real estate agents as entrepreneurs.
Right.
And I think a big part of that is because you have a brokerage. So it's like, oh, I work for Remax, or oh, I work for Coldwell Banker, or whoever it might be. And it creates this notion of like, oh, they're working for a company that supports them, when realistically, the company really isn't supporting you that much. And you can correct me on this. Right. You're actually supporting the company because you have a desk fee, you have all these fees. So, and it's not your traditional model of like, hey, I work for this company and this company pays me. It's most of the time you're actually paying the company, right?
That's exactly right. And once you've gotten your license, you find out that like picking a brokerage is, you're not interviewing for them to want to hire you. They'll hire anyone with a license because there's a chance you're going to make them money.
Yeah.
You know? So really interviewing with brokerages is finding the right fit for you and who's going to like support you in the way and give you the things you need. So yeah, I've always thought of it that way is like, I'm with Coldwell Banker right now. And, I don't ever say I work for Coldwell Banker. You know,
Right.
I run my own business, and truthfully, I pay Coldwell Banker for the tools and all the things, the support that I get from them, the education pieces that I get from them. So
Yeah.
it's more of a partnership, really.
And like a little bit of logo and branding and signage, right? Like, because that adds
100%.
some of the
100%. The funny thing about that is, in the beginning, I thought a lot about that, but nobody knows. Most people don't even know what brokerage you're with, right? Or you switch and you post it on social media. No one even cares, right? That I move from one brokerage to another brokerage. It's me that they worked with. It's me they're going to work with
Right.
again. It's not like, oh, well, he was with Remax at the time, so now I'm going to work with Remax. That just isn't how that works. But there is, again, I'm with Coldwell Banker. They're since 1906. It's easy. I don't have to explain who they are. It's like, oh yeah, I'm with Coldwell Banker. Everyone's like, yeah. I was previously with a smaller brokerage, and I always had to tell this story of like, oh, we're a Colorado company and we do this and that, So there's some advantages of being tied with different brokerages for different reasons, depending on what fits for you.
Yeah. And in terms of like education, like what was it like when you first started versus now? Because I would assume like you're paying more when you first start and making less, but hopefully you're getting more tools and more guidance and,
Right.
and more support. Was that actually the case with your career progression?
Yes, and I've always leaned into the education pieces. I feel like that's what I'm paying for with the brokerage. So I want to know as much as I can, of course. And, there's kind of the fake it till you make it thing. And I always wanted to know it, right? Like know everything that I could. And so there's so much to learn, and I'm constantly taking advantage of the things that are available to me.
Do you focus on buying or selling?
I prefer sellers, to be honest. I'd love to work more with sellers. My numbers up to this date, I've worked with more buyers than sellers. I think buyers are a little bit easier to come across. They're anxious to find a home. Also, the market, it's been low inventory the last couple of years, so it's been harder to get sellers. But for me personally, with that marketing background, I feel like that marketing really helps me with sellers because I can market their house better than other agents. I don't want to make this a commercial about me, but I can market their house, get more eyes on it. They end up with more money.
Yeah.
The house sells faster with better marketing. So
yeah, 100%. Okay, so I want to reverse a little bit.
Yeah.
You went from a decently high-paying job to literally no guaranteed money.
Right.
And whether you have an entrepreneurial spirit or not, why would you do that?
Yeah, it's scary. It really is. It's funny because years ago, when I was younger and had young children, I had looked at even like insurance or something like that because I actually worked in banking before marketing, and I had always thought about real estate. Not having the guarantee when I had young children was a no go.
Right.
There was no way I was going to do that. But honestly, I just got to the point where, honestly, it was kind of COVID related too. Like the world was changing, and I was like, man, it's time to do my thing regardless. So I was going to take the chance. I believed in myself, and I was going to do it. It is scary. Yeah. I mean, I had a nice salary, and it's hard to walk away from that, but working for yourself, the sky's the limit. I guess that's the way I'm looking at it, is like now there's no limit on what I can make or, how much I have to work and all those kind of things.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely a snowball effect in real estate for sure.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
I will say that I started my business in 2020.
Yep.
Right when COVID hit.
Mm-hmm.
But technically speaking, I started in December of 2019, which means that I wasn't just riding the COVID train.
Got it.
I wasn't like, oh, pandemic, let's jump careers, you know?
You were ahead of the curve.
I wasn't freaking out buying, 80 pounds of toilet paper.
Right. Yeah.
All right. So what marketing skills, like you mentioned, you use them a lot for your sellers.
Mhm.
Is there actually a lot of overlap? Because like
Mhm.
there are a couple verticals I don't like to touch. I
Right.
don't like to touch real estate.
Yep.
I don't like to touch gyms, so box gyms,
Gotcha.
typically speaking.
Yep.
Finance I will work with, but typically they are kind of douchebags.
They're
So
tough.
I don't like them from a personality fit perspective.
Mm-hmm.
Those are like the main ones that I try to avoid.
Right.
So how much success have you had based off of the fact that you were in marketing or just from blood, sweat, and tears?
Yeah. First of all, I'd like to say it's a bummer that you don't want to work with realtors because I could use some help with a few things. Every time we go to lunch, I'm like, hey, man, what do you know about YouTube ads? Yeah, I mean, so before I was at the digital marketing agency, I was in content. I worked for a large top 100 retailer, and we pumped content, nonstop video. I worked with a videographer. We did video, and I wrote the blogs constantly. And so I just had that background of like pumping content, which is tough. It's a long game, but I guess since day one for my business, I've just buckled down and said, I'm going to do these things, right? For me, so for real estate companies, if you think about SEO and even paid marketing, the front page of Google, it's almost impossible for your local realtor to show up. You've got Zillow, you've got Trulia, you've got realtor.com. Like if you plug in Fort Collins Realtor, there's not a Fort Collins Realtor on that front page.
Right.
Right. And so that's really hard. So I think the only option you've got there is the Google My Business and the Google Map. They'll show 3 places on the map. So I actually live in Windsor. I focused on that a lot. And we don't
Windsor, Colorado.
Windsor, Colorado. We don't have to dig into that, but I've, obviously reviews are super important. So I make sure everyone gives me a review that I work with. And
at gunpoint.
I upload photos, often. When I was in the very beginning, it was on my calendar to add 2 photos to my Google My Business page like once a week.
Yeah.
Like I had one day a week where that was on my calendar. I did that. So that's just one example of like picking the things that I know aren't going to work today. It's not going to get me business today, but if I can work towards a good placement for that map placement, which now 3-4 years in, I'm actually showing up pretty well for that.
Yeah.
So it's the long game, but if you focus on the long game, it pays off.
What's interesting to me is like I feel like real estate, your success depends on how much you want it. Whereas a lot of other businesses, and granted, there's a lot of luck involved in real estate too, but like a lot of other businesses, it's luck, it's having the right timing, having the right skill set, having the right strategy. Like there's so much involved in how well you can do. Whereas real estate, it's like, how much are you putting your name out there? Like how much are you actually trying to do better? And literally day one, I knew that you became a real estate agent.
Right.
Right. And from a content perspective, you were posting vertical videos before vertical videos were like really, really prevalent.
Right.
Especially in your industry. Like there really wasn't that many people at that time. And I know it wasn't that long ago, but like
right.
more seasoned real estate agents, they don't give a shit.
Uh-huh.
Right. And then newer real estate agents tend to be lazier from what I've seen. So I'm saying like for how much you want it, you were posting basically daily.
Yep.
And in my mind, one of the most important ways to gain success in real estate, and I'm not a real estate agent, so correct me, is people need to know you exist.
Right.
Because every single person knows 6+ real estate agents, right? Yeah. And so when you're top of mind because you're constantly posting content, what I really liked about your content is it wasn't invasive.
Right.
It was like, hey, I'm on a lake in Windsor. Like you could live over there.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I love that.
Awesome. Yeah, man. That was always important to me to never be like constantly, right? Like day after day, knocking you over the head with content that you don't care about. And I still struggle with that. Like, how are you interesting and showing that you know what you're doing without being annoying, right? One time I did a post that was everyone hates a realtor who markets until they need a realtor who markets, right? Like, I think that's a brilliant idea, but like, you hate that. Like, oh, I'm on my feet. I got this realtor. He's marketing all the time. Oh, it's so annoying. But you need to sell your house. Who you want to call? You want to call the guy who's marketing all the time. You
Yeah.
know. So, but yeah, I mean, I try to mix it up and do personal stuff. I was at a meeting the other night with some friends, and this guy, he doesn't follow a lot of people on social media. He pulled up his Instagram. He's like, every time I open Instagram, you're the first one. And he pulls his phone out of his pocket, pulls it up, and there I am. Right?
Yeah.
And I'm like, that's on purpose.
And he hasn't unfollowed you yet. That's
Yeah.
that's good.
Yeah.
Right?
I'm like, I'm sorry, but that's on purpose.
How do you? So my girlfriend used to be in real estate.
Yeah.
How do you feel about the fact that like a lot of real estate agents, they treat any social setting as basically business, right? Like,
Yeah.
because you ideally you want your friends, you want your family, you want the people in your spheres, what real estate agents call it. You
Right.
want them to work with you. So like,
Absolutely.
how do you blend business versus social, and how do you stay authentic so that you're not just constantly pitching your friends?
Yeah. I mean, that's a tough one. And I feel like in the beginning, when I was desperate to sell something, I probably was a little more over the top than I was comfortable with. But I needed to sell homes. And I feel like where I am now, I'm like, well, I'm not desperate to sell your house, but I want you to know I'm not a secret agent. That's an important thing.
Yeah.
It's not a secret that I'm an agent. You know I am. When the time is right, I hope you think of me, you call me. The other thing is social events are actually pretty easy because you either own a home, you want to buy a home, or, you maybe want to talk about the last time you bought a house and how bad of a situation it was or something like that, right? Like real estate's something that everyone has something to talk about. So even last night, I'm in a bowling league. Last night I was in a bowling league, started talking to the guy, wasn't like promoting myself at all. And of course the conversation goes to, oh, what do you do for a living? Oh, I'm a realtor.
Right.
Oh my gosh, me and my partner want to buy a house, So I'm much more relaxed now. Like, I'm not in your face, but I do want to ask you what you're doing. If I meet someone new in a social situation, I'm going to ask you what you do for a living, because I know you're going to ask me what I do. And then we're going to have that conversation.
Is that like an immediate like business card type of scenario, or like how does that work?
I did give that guy a business card,
Yeah, okay.
and he went home and followed me on Instagram, which was really cool.
Nice.
So I don't have a way to contact him, but I am now we're connected on Instagram. So, yeah. I have business cards in my pocket if you need one.
So I told Andy this. You said like, hey, I want to come to you for marketing strategies, and like there are verticals I know I'm not good at, and I like to be like a holistic marketer, which means I technically should be able to work with any
Right.
vertical. But I do love giving ideas.
Sure.
And one of the ideas I gave you a couple years ago was, hey, get a brand new business card design every month. And that way, every time you see someone, even if you've already seen them, you can say, hey, check out my new business card. And then you can give them a new business card.
Yeah.
And it's just perpetual.
I remember, and I didn't do that.
No, it's spammy. That's like a snail mail spammy, basically.
Yeah. What I think is really funny about business cards is a couple of years ago, everyone got to like the dot or whatever, where you like plug your phones, and maybe I'm old school, but I was like, no, just take my card. Like, I don't want this to go directly to my phone that it will just be lost. I'd rather get home tonight, look at your card and throw it down, or throw it away even, than just like click a button on my phone. Like, I just don't like that. But I feel like the funny part is I recently on some networking events, everyone's got cards again. So it was like this little, for a year and a half, everyone was like trying to do these electronic, like bump our phones and you'll get my information. Like, I don't know, but it's changed back, I think, to like a actual card.
You got to think about the timeline. If I bump your phone, you need an immediate return on that. You need a bump, and then they need to text you or email you immediately.
Right.
Because I have 1,000+ contacts in my contact list on my phone.
Yeah.
I have 1,000+ contacts
lost
on my email list on my phone.
Yep.
So if I don't remember your name, then it's lost forever. Whereas a business card, like you said, it's a physical entity.
Yep.
And you can pull that back up, and you can even add a QR code so it does the exact same thing as the bump. I don't think the bump has ever made sense.
Right. 100% agree.
Yeah. I mean, at that point, just give them your number and tell them to text you. It's
Yeah.
the same difference.
Right.
You're
Exactly.
saving 5 seconds and you're removing some of the actual physical memory control that you can have
Mm-hmm.
when someone's actually inputting your information.
For sure. And like I said, even if you get home and you see that card one more time and then throw it away, we had a conversation. You got, at a different time, you saw the card a second time. That's better than lost in my contacts.
Well, you know how everyone has like a junk drawer in their house?
Mm-hmm.
So what I'll do is I'll have like a specific fold in my wallet that I'll keep business cards in until it gets too much.
Right.
I'll take them out and I'll put them in my cabinet under my desk.
Yep.
And then eventually a year or two later, I'll clean that out.
Mm-hmm.
But I'll go through each one and be like, do I need this contact information? And
Absolutely.
normally I won't enter any of that in my phone. And if it's like I talk to my sprinkler guy every year for the last 4 years,
Right.
twice a year.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, I need his contact information, especially if we're gonna refer him out because he does a great job.
Right.
So there it is.
There it
you know,
is.
I keep that card. I always keep that card.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
Absolutely.
you don't have a Rolodex?
I do not have a Rolodex. No. But I do have a pile, just like you said, just kind of like a little pile in my office that I'll go through and throw some away every once in a while.
Yeah, and if someone really rubs me the wrong way, you just take the scissors to it. You know,
Absolutely.
shred it up.
Yeah.
Cool. So I think something that we can kind of jump into a little bit more now is we talked a little bit about how you jumped into it.
Mm-hmm.
What were the struggles early on, and what are the struggles now? Like, have they gone away? Like,
Yeah.
what does it look like?
Yeah. I think the biggest struggle is every time you close a deal, you're unemployed, right? Like who's next, right? And I say that a lot. Like, that's awesome, I got that one. Who's next? So yeah, even years into it with multiple deals closed, you still are like, well, who's next? And I, of course, always working my hot list, cold list. But yeah, in the beginning, like just there's so much to know, and your friends know that you don't know it, right? Because you're brand new, right? Or like they know what you used to do. Now you're posting that you're a realtor. So it takes a little while for your friends to trust you, I think.
Okay, so how much is there to actually know? Because a lot of people think, all right, all they do is fill out paperwork, or like for sale by owners, they're like, I can sell my house. Like, what's the big deal?
I would say every time I do a deal, something comes up that I've never seen before. There's in negotiations, inspections, there's all kinds of things that pop up that can ruin a deal.
Yeah.
Or with the lenders, appraisals, different FHA appraisals can break a deal based on condition of the home and things like that. So I think just the more that you're doing it, you've seen this before, what's going to happen, so I'm like, oh, okay, we're going to accept this FHA loan. We got to watch out for this and that on this house, versus my first deal was like, woohoo, we got one under contract, let's wait for closing, but now it's like, no, before that happens, I'm going to look for this. I'm going to ask these questions. I'm going to research this. So there's 1,000 ways that a real estate deal can go wrong. And none of those are in the test that you take to become a realtor.
Does your brokerage help with that? Like what?
Yeah. I mean, I have a managing broker who I can call and text at any time and answer questions. What I think's more important is kind of a group of other realtors. This is where having friends makes sense, right?
Yeah.
Or working at a brokerage that's big enough that you can kind of find your people, right?
Right.
I'm in the Loveland Johnstown office for Coldwell Banker, and we have 70 agents in our office. I don't know 70 people in that office because they don't come to meetings. They're only part-time agents, all this kind of stuff. But if you know 5 or 8 people who you can throw in a text chain and just say, hey, has anyone seen this? Or, hey, does anyone have a plumber that's available in Greeley today? So kind of having a group of friends is the key thing that most people don't think about.
And its timeliness, right? Like, yeah, you could potentially find those answers if you do a ton of research and a ton of digging, but like you have access to those quicker because
Right.
you have that network,
Right.
and you have access to use cases where it's like, hey, this was successful for them or it wasn't. Because like honestly, with AI and everything going on with Google,
Mm-hmm.
I feel like it's easier and easier to go down rabbit holes of research where it's like you can't figure out what the best answer is or what the most accurate answer is, which is ironic because they're actually trying to accomplish the opposite of that.
Right.
Whereas if you have people that have use cases, it's like, hey, they did this.
Yep.
It worked out in this fashion for them. And
Yep. Yeah. I mean, I can send a text that's like, hey, does anyone have some verbiage for a contract on a septic system? Like Larimer County has certain things, like you can't just sell a house with a septic system in Larimer County without it going through a process.
Right.
So, and a brand new agent doesn't know that, and you need to have the right terms in the contract to kind of protect your buyer, and that's something that
otherwise it gets real shitty.
It gets real shitty. But that's something you wouldn't know in the beginning until you've gone through one, and then you're like, oh crap, I screwed that one up, or I now I'm behind the 8 ball trying to figure out what to do.
Yeah. Gotcha. All right. So circling back,
Yeah.
struggles.
Oh, struggles.
Yeah,
Oh,
that was me. I derailed us.
Yeah. Okay.
But
So yeah, it's because I'm who I am, I've again focused a lot of my downtime in the beginning on marketing and making sure everything looked solid, my branding, right? I built out my website, and so I'd spend days doing the things that a realtor normally doesn't do.
right.
But it kept me busy, and I have now I don't have time to do those things, but it's been so smart that I did it ahead of time, and now
Yeah.
I can go back and make like small changes to it. But the struggle really was like, how do I get my first deal? How do I get people who want to work with me?
Yeah.
And there's 1,000 ways to get, you can buy leads, you can, obviously your friends' sphere of influence. There's 1,000 ways to get your next deal, but it's really scary in the beginning when you don't have any past clients. You don't, do you really want to call people you worked with at your last job and just have a phone conversation? Like that's the kind of stuff they tell you to do. And like, I don't like to answer my phone. You've probably called me and I've blown it off. Send me a quick text. So I mean, it's really hard in the beginning. Like, what can I do to get these first few deals? That was the main struggle all along.
How much does it hurt when your sphere of influence, like close people, work with someone else?
Yeah, it hurts. You obviously want to do all of your friends' deals. I've been lucky. I've had good referrals from some good friends. I've sold some good friends' homes. But yeah, I've also seen people I know, the people I'd hope would work with me, post on Facebook like, "Hey, we just bought this house." There's two things with that. I think I look at that as I wasn't in constant contact with them, or they had someone else, and I respect that. If someone tells me, "Oh, this is who we used to buy this house, and we're going to use them again when we sell," I respect that.
Yeah.
Right. Even though we're friends, and I'm hopeful that you would use me, kind of not using someone that you had a good experience with to use me. If I was them, I'd be really pissed. So I get it, I guess. So yeah, the hope is obviously that all my friends are going to call me, all my family members are going to call me, but I'm realistic that isn't going to happen. And I guess what I do is I focus on if I stay busy and I'm doing lots of other transactions, it doesn't hurt as well.
Right.
As bad.
Right.
Like if you have no business and then a friend of yours posts on Facebook they bought a house, you're pissed because that was like your only hope.
Yeah.
So like having other ways of getting business is the only way around not being totally destroyed when your friend uses someone else.
Is there much of like a sphere in turn, like, because you're local, right? Your business is very local.
Right.
Can you get on the bad side of other real estate agents, and does that hurt if you do?
Yes. Yeah, I think your reputation makes a big difference. And I think everything you do, the branding that you do, doesn't just speak to the potential clients that you're going to get. It's also uh, potential realtors that might take your offer or not. Because let's say, especially in a hot market, a listing agent might have 3 or 4 offers on a house and you have a bad reputation. Are they going to tell? I mean, legally, they have to do the best thing for their client.
Yeah, but if
But
you're a pain in the ass because of your reputation,
if
like your deals don't go through, or you,
100%,
right?
100%. And so I always try to be nice to people and try to build as good a reputation as I can. There's names that you'll hear. Agents will throw around like, "Oh man, I got an offer from so and so," you know. So that definitely hurts you. And so, from the beginning, making friends, it's always who helps.
Well, I mean, what's interesting in terms of like overlap with marketing agencies is like if you work with other agencies, usually they'll have specialties that you don't have.
Right.
And you can throw them leads and they can throw you leads.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like a very symbiotic thing, right?
Right.
So I think there's a lot of benefit there. But the second part is like I have a couple clients where they're working with multiple agencies for unique things.
Mm-hmm.
And even though I'm good at those things that they're working with other agencies for, it's not like I'm going to go in and be like, this agency sucks. Like they're terrible when they're not. And that's the key part is like, if the other agency is doing a good enough job, and good enough is key here, not just good, but like good enough.
Yep.
Right. Like say you can do 5-10% marginally better. You shouldn't go in and just shit on them because then you ruin your reputation. You're showing your teeth in a way that's like, who is that actually benefiting? You're taking money away from someone else who is doing a good enough job.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And so like, I don't get agencies that do that because so many agencies will go.
Absolutely.
They will try and take the business no matter what.
Mm-hmm.
Even if someone's doing a better job than they know they can do,
Yep.
they will try and take the business.
Yep.
And I don't abide by that. Like I don't get it.
Yeah, I 100% agree with you. In the real estate world, if you were going to sell your house and you had another agent come to your house on Thursday, then on Friday I come over to your house to give you an idea of the price, and you mention, oh, so-and-so was here yesterday, I'm never going to say, oh, that person's a jackass. Like I would never work with them. Instead, I would say, oh, he's really good. He's really good, but here's the things that I do different,
Yeah.
Or did he happen to mention to you that, this, or did he take the time to educate you on this? Those are the kind of things that you would do. And I think marketing should do the same thing.
I agree in the vast majority of the time, unless someone has very intentionally burned you. Because I don't play that anymore.
Yeah.
Like if I've worked with another agency, and I'm not going to name names here, but if I've worked with another agency and they come and do an audit of an account and steal a client from me,
right,
and I know they're going to do a worse job and they talk shit about me,
mm-hmm.
if I hear their name come up again, or if they do an audit of one of my accounts again and my client's like, hey, this is happening, I'm going to say outright, these guys have no idea what they're doing.
Yeah.
And you should not trust them.
Yeah. And again, that's doing the best thing for the client.
Exactly.
Right.
It's for the client. It's not even for me at that point. It's like, look, this isn't about me. This is, do you want to work with the person who can get you the best results?
Absolutely.
And do you want to work with a liar? Don't work with people that lie to you just to get your business, because that is incredibly scary.
Right. Totally agree.
Totally unrelated, but somewhat related. All right. So the real estate industry has this big thing coming down where it's like percentage payouts are going away. And I think a lot of it is because like people are thinking, hey, like I don't know if we're getting that much value for having a more valuable home or whatever.
Right.
Right. What are your thoughts on that?
I have a lot of thoughts on that.
Yeah.
That can be an entire different podcast. Yeah, this lawsuit and changes in the way realtors are going to get paid is a big deal, but I don't think in the end it's going to change anything. I think good agents show their value and will. The only thing that's really going to happen for consumers is that the conversation should be out there, right? Like a lot of times agents were just like, oh, 3% or 6% total is just the average, right?
Yeah.
That's why we're getting bashed as a industry. It was just like, oh, that's what everyone does. And now you have to show your, why you're worth that. It's going to get really interesting on the buyer side, though, when you're working with buyers and making sure that the buyer's agent is going to get paid, because not necessarily going to get paid by the seller anymore.
Well, it's crazy because it's like it used to be and still is, right? A completely non-performance based model.
Yeah.
If you are a part of this transaction and I designate you as my real estate agent, you get X percentage that is set industry wide.
Yeah.
Whereas marketing, there's performance-based agencies, there's revenue-based agencies, there's agencies that say, hey, this is my bill rate because this is what I'm worth.
Mm-hmm.
And I think what's interesting is that ideally agents who are better not only make what they're making before, but actually make more.
Right.
Because they're getting paid in relationship to the value they're bringing to the table.
Right.
But at the same time, my other thought on this is that it's so hard to become a real estate agent. Like we're talking about, you're sacrificing it. You're throwing everything away if that's the career you're going into. You're starting from scratch.
Right.
And most agents, I would assume, the average deals they close in the first year is like 3 to 5. Is that?
Yeah, it's according to NAR, this might be last year's numbers, but the average agent, so 49% of all agents sold 2 or less homes in the last year. So if you randomly picked a name of an agent in your area, called them, there's a good chance they didn't sell any homes, or 1 or 2. Now those numbers are skewed because there's so many part-time agents
And hanging their licenses.
and they're hanging their licenses and stuff. But still, like, so even like what you said, like 5 in a year as kind of an average, it's hard to actually make. Like everyone thinks agents make so much money.
Well, I think the big ones do, and the brokerages do, right?
Right.
But it's like if what you're selling a 300, 500K home, you get, what is it? It's like you get 3% of that, but then you got to pay your brokerage.
Right.
You got to pay your desk fee.
There's a ton of,
like, so much is chopped off the top.
there's a ton of costs
to where you're making, I mean, this is all top of my head. I don't know any of I don't know any of this. Like you're making what, like $8K a transaction, and you do 5 a year maybe, and that basically means you're making $40K a year.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's a grind even to get to that level. I think with this, the lawsuit and changes and everything with the industry, you will see those kind of low level agents that were just depending on getting paid 3% or 2.8%. That's going to go away, and it's not going to be, they're going to have to negotiate for themselves. Right. So you have to show your value. You're going to now sit down and talk to your buyers and say, the seller might pay me, but if they don't, you are right. Like I'm not doing this for free. So now you have to show why you're valuable enough for them to pay you $10,000, $20,000. It's a lot of money. And on the buy side, that really hurts because buyers don't have
is that going to be out of pocket, or is that going to be, can you build that in the loan? Do we know yet?
There's a lot. Yeah, you can build it in the loan. Actually, just yesterday, the big concern was VA, veterans, the VA loans. They were not allowed to pay certain fees as part of the VA loan structure, and that include paying realtors. So that's kind of been a huge concern all along, is like, well, so this lawsuit's saying basically buyer's agents can't work for veterans. Like that's insane. And then first-time home buyers obviously don't have even an extra, they're putting every dollar they have into the down payment and are barely making it. So this is a whole nother podcast, but
I know.
I could talk to you all day. Yeah, I didn't know this was coming up. But you can put it into the contract too. So the sellers can still offer, and the way I'm going to work with my sellers is explaining why you want to offer a buyer's agent commission, because that's going to sell the house faster than not offering it. But you don't have to anymore, right? Like it was kind of like you had to. Like, now you still can. The seller can still pay that. And I mean, there's a lot of other questions about appraisals. Like how's that affect the appraisal if it was appraised based off of the fact that
an immediate 6% was automatically going to
the sale price. So now are we on an appraisal? Are we comparing a house that had a 6% commission to a house that had 0 or 3% total commission?
Yeah.
Like it's gonna skew the whole system. And there's a lot of things we don't know. A lot of these changes will be official in August of 24. So there's still a lot of things we don't know how they're gonna play out. But the way I'm planning on doing it with my buyers is having the conversation up front. Like here's what I do for you. Here's what I want to make. And I will tell you if the seller is offering a commission, I'm going to take it.
Yeah.
If they are not, we're going to have to add that. We can add that into the contract, right?
Yeah.
So now you are offering a certain amount, but there's a concession back to the realtor. So honestly, this just gets more complicated. Like it doesn't really help the consumer.
What I really like about your answer is that everything you just said focused on the market and the buyers and the sellers. It didn't focus on real estate agents. But I think that the ripple effect is you're going to have less new agents wanting to enter the market because they're not guaranteed commission, and they're already, like we said, if you're doing 5 deals a year, you're still only making like $40K, right? So it's like you are de-incentivizing people to become real estate agents, which we all know how Zillow turned out 2 years ago. They tried to buy and sell homes and massively overvalued them, massively overbought, and
they lost $880 million. $881 million is what they lost. So yeah, all the time people are like, oh, my Zestimate is this. My house is worth this. I'm like, yeah, they lost $880 million buying and selling homes. They don't know. It's an algorithm.
I don't know anything about Redfin or those types of companies, but it's like you said, things pop up. Yeah. There is nuance. There are things that you need to know to be effective at the job, and you should not de-incentivize people from starting in the first place.
Right.
At the same time.
Yeah. I'm following you, and I agree. I think it's going to be harder. I think agents will leave. I think less people want to become agents. I'm not worried about it at all, to be honest.
Yeah. It's just value.
I'm confident in what I'm doing.
Yeah.
And I work at a brokerage that is giving us the talk tracks and the things to think out, even though it's not even in place yet. We're already kind of thinking about how we're going to handle this. So yeah, it's going to be a change, but it's honestly, I think it's going to kind of all end up in the end. It's not going to be much of it. This really was lawyers making money off of an easy target. If you look at it, the National Association of Realtors is the largest association of professionals who all pay a fee into something. So it was a huge sitting duck. There was billions of dollars, and that's why they got sued. Like it was a huge,
the Ponzi scheme.
Easy. Yeah.
It's just been around long enough to where it wasn't called out.
Right. So things are, so it's going to be a big change for the whole industry.
What are things that, and you covered this a little bit already, but like, what are things just from your mentality, the way you operate, the way you run your business that you think make you successful?
I think I kind of covered in the beginning, like I started day one, like I'm building a brand, I'm building a business. I'm not just taking the next transaction. I'm not trying to find one more transaction. I'm trying to grow a business of repeat business and referrals. So I think that's the main thing, is just like the mindset of I'm building something bigger, and the day-to-day activities that will get me there is what I focused on. I don't know. What was the question?
All right. Well, let's shift gears, because we already talked about that a little bit.
Yeah.
But what are things you just really love about your job now?
I mean, the freedom, right? Well, it's kind of funny because so many people say they get into real estate for the freedom that you can do whatever, work the hours you want to work. I'm not free at all. I work all the time.
Your phone's always on. Right?
Your phone's always on. I told you this the other day. I basically work 40 hours a week during the week, and then I do showings on the weekends and get calls in the evenings and stuff like that. That's my choice. That's something I'm deciding to do, and I'm getting better at taking time off. But on the other hand, like this winter, I had a ski pass at Eldora, and it was the weekday pass. So on Tuesday, I saw, my Thursday is open. I'm going to go snowboarding, a day in advance, 2 days in advance. I could just pick up my stuff and
Yeah.
go snowboarding. So I love that. So yeah, it's the freedom. I'm doing, I can take breaks. I'm not clocking in. I'm not, you know, there aren't certain things I have to do. This is something I said to you the other day too, is like, if we're at lunch, you're like, oh, what do you have to do this afternoon? I'm like, I don't have anything I have to do,
Yeah.
but I'm going to do this, and this, but that, again, that's just like my mentality. But yeah, I mean, so I think we've already talked about how hard it is for agents to actually make money, but the sky is the limit.
Yeah.
As you grow and as time goes on. So you can make a lot of money and you can set your own schedule and you can decide, there's a lot of agents that are like, I don't work on Sundays. I'll show you property on Saturday. If that doesn't work, we'll get together next week. I'm someone who's still showing properties on Sundays or whatever, or taking calls at night. But that's all up to you, And so I think
do you have boundaries? What are your firm boundaries?
I don't have any real firm boundaries, to be honest. There are nights where I'll turn my phone off, or I'll get a text at 8 o'clock at night. If it's not urgent, I'm going to respond tomorrow. But I've also at 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock at night gotten these wild texts that need to be responded to.
Yeah.
So I'm still new enough maybe that I don't have a lot of boundaries.
Yeah.
But again, for me, it's all about the client getting what they need. And if at night is when they are, worried about these things or having these questions, then that's when we're going to have the conversation.
Yeah. One of my big ones, like we went from the same agency, and part of becoming like my own boss and entrepreneur is like, I do want freedom.
Yeah.
And it's ironic that like you're getting freedom in some areas, but you're sacrificing a lot of freedom in other areas because you need to grow your business.
Right.
And if you don't work, you're not going to put food on the table. Right. But for me, one of the freedoms I gained was I get to work with whoever I want to work with.
Yep.
And I also know what I'm doing to the extent that emergencies should not happen.
Mm-hmm.
They shouldn't happen.
No, they shouldn't.
And to allow people to think that emergencies are happening when they're not is also not an effective way of being a good account manager. So what I do is I have an iPhone and I have a focus to where 5 p.m. might be 6 p.m.
Mm-hmm.
Every day, all of my business apps, my home screen of business apps, they disappear.
Cool.
And none of my customers have my actual phone number. They have a voice over IP number. So if they call, it's a part of Zoom, that business ad disappears. I don't check email after hours. I don't check email on the weekends. And it's like that creates a balance for me because it's like I get home and I'm home.
Yeah.
And unless I'm like, I really need to do something tonight, I'll obviously go do it. But like,
yep.
I've been in business 4 years, have never had a single issue with that happening.
Absolutely.
And it's like in some roles, you just train yourself to think like the apocalypse is coming or like the stress exists. And it's like that it doesn't need to exist. If you set the right boundaries, it doesn't need to exist. And obviously I'm not saying that's likely for your industry because your industry, like you do need to do a lot of those things to be good at your job.
Right.
But in terms of like setting boundaries, everyone should have some at some point.
Totally agree. And on the real estate side, you would know when your emergencies are, like the dates, your inspection objection deadline.
Right.
You know when your deadlines are. So there shouldn't be anything that's like really an emergency, like you said. So yeah, that's something I need to work on more. But yeah, back when we were at the digital agency that we worked at together, there were times where, I had so much work that I was behind on that it was like, I'd be like, I can do this later, or I'll take this home. I'll do this on my laptop at home. And then you get home and you're like, I don't want to do that. Then you feel bad. Then you're like, I'll wake up early. And then it's like this whole cycle of like stress. Right. And I don't feel anything like that anymore. Like even with taking calls at night, it's still just like, let's have this quick conversation. We'll handle it tomorrow. Like not that big a deal.
I decided within the first couple months of running my business that I will absolutely not work on weekends. And like you said, there's so many things where it's like, oh, like I have this extra work I need to be doing or whatever. And it's like, every single time it's come around to it and a weekend comes up, I'm like, I'm exhausted.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not gonna do it. And so I put it off. And so it's not that I don't get the work done. It's I decide when the work gets done.
Right.
It's I either work late during the weekdays,
Mm-hmm.
I'm more efficient at working during the weekdays, or it's not actually urgent enough for me to work on it over the weekend and it'll wait till the next week.
Right.
But I've just learned that like if I tell myself I'm gonna work over the weekends and save something for the weekends, I don't actually do it
Right.
because it's not in my nature.
Right.
You know?
Yeah. Makes sense.
Unless it's like a super big promotion. Don't worry, clients.
Right.
Yeah.
Cyber Monday, you're getting those ads. Right?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, there's some platforms that still don't have great scheduling functionality,
Mm-hmm.
and so like literally, there's been many years where I have a client where New Year's is their number one year, and I don't think they even know that I do this.
Yeah.
But I'll be out partying, and I will go onto my phone and find Wi-Fi and schedule or turn things on at midnight.
Yeah. It's wild.
Dude, it's crazy. And I mean, it is what it is, you know, until those platforms get better scheduling functionality. Like,
Yep.
you got to do what you got to do.
Yep.
You know?
That's right.
I got a couple things,
Okay.
but any gears that you want to switch to?
I don't have anything in mind. No.
Okay. I want to talk about home brewing.
Oh,
We'll jump back into real estate in a little bit.
home
but
brewing. Yes.
Andy here, avid home brewer, had a jalapeno IPA.
Mango habanero IPA.
Gorgeous beer.
That was a fantastic beer.
Absolutely fantastic. What made you get into home brewing?
So I've always liked beer since I was 16. My first natural
Since I was
ice.
10 years old.
My first natty ice. And yeah, so as local breweries were opening and everything, I just was so interested in it. You know, like I just always thought it'd be something cool to do. And then I had a buddy who was actually a professional brewer, and I asked him like, "Hey, can you help me brew a beer at home?" He came over, we kind of set up, we talked through what I needed. I bought some things and we set up the whole process one weekend. And then he came back the next week and we actually brewed my first beer. And then he never came back, which I was like, oh, that's a bummer. Like I was hoping someone was going to show me how to do this right, but I figured it out. YouTube, watch the YouTube channel. And then I brewed with my next door neighbor. So I had a buddy that we brewed all the time. We used to brew like every weekend. I wish I was still doing that, but gotten too busy to do that.
Pretend we're doing a LinkedIn post. Give me the number one lesson, business entrepreneur lesson that you've taken away from being a home brewer.
Okay. Lesson from home brewing. You know, brewing is mostly cleaning. So I want to make a joke about cleanly, like be clean when you show up at the interview, but I'm not going to do that.
That's a fine joke. No, appearance matters. 1,000% appearance matters. Like,
yeah, sanitation matters.
I didn't launch this podcast for 4 years because I'm like, I want to get the studio set up. And granted,
Yeah.
there's a lot of things I still want to change, but it's like,
Yeah.
when you're putting yourself out there, like you said, oh my God, this is perfect. What are the first things you focused on when launching your real estate business? You said these.
I said these things?
Yeah, you said website.
Building a website, social media, business
business cards.
everything set up and everything looking the same.
That's your appearance. That's
Yep.
your cleanliness.
Yep, you're right.
If you're launching a business, you need to have a business to launch.
Yeah.
You can't just be Andy.
Yeah. Another thing that's really interesting about home brewing and business is so most of my friends knew me as a home brewer.
Yeah.
I posted on Facebook, like you said, I had that beer that was on tap at downtown Fort Collins in a brewery. I've had a couple of my beers that were brewed at professional breweries, and I was really proud of that. I'd post about it a lot. Then I became a realtor, and my messaging changed from, oh, I'm your buddy who brews all the time, to, oh yeah, now I'm a professional. And it's so funny because in the beginning I thought, man, I don't want to be the drunk realtor. I don't want people to think of me as the drunk realtor. There's enough of those out there, right? And I shied away from it. I didn't post about it. I started posting about business and everything else. But then I've come around to where it's like, no, people want to do business with people they know and they like and they trust, right? People they
Yeah.
have something in common with. So for a while, I was going to these networking events. Like I joined the Windsor, Colorado Chamber, and everyone's a realtor, So now I'm paying money to go talk to a bunch of realtors.
Yeah.
They're a loan officer, which I have enough loan officers calling me all the time. Or insurance agents, those kind of people that I can drive business to is all I ended up meeting over and over. And I was like, this isn't going to get me any business. And then I got referrals from my homebrew club. I belong to the Loveland, Colorado Wise Guys. And I got in my first year and a half, I got 2 deals. One was the daughter of someone from my homebrew club, and one was like a friend of someone in my homebrew club.
Yeah.
And I still go to meetings, and I've had people ask me questions. There's one guy about to retire. He wants to move out of state. We talk every month about that, So I'm getting business from that. I'm like, why am I paying money to go to a chamber event and talk to everyone else who's a realtor when I can just go be myself, right? Like this is the takeaway, right? If you're networking, if networking is part of your business, just be yourself. Be with people you want to work with, because people want to work with someone like themselves.
Yeah.
So anyways, it's so funny because I turned my back on brewing in a way because I thought, oh, that's not going to be good for my business, but it actually is.
I mean, it's crazy. Just do things you like around people you like, and they're gonna want to help you.
Absolutely.
I have this buddy who plays poker all the time, and his poker buddies send him business because they're like, "Hey, Cameron's in marketing.
Yeah,
let's send him some business because we need marketing done." It's like if you're around them, proximity is huge, but building like that social rapport, that's so incredibly important to growing.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Good stuff.
Cool. Do we want to jump into buying and selling?
Sure.
Okay.
Let's buy and sell.
Let's buy and sell. Man, I had something on the brewing topic that was actually pertinent, but I can't remember what it was.
It's good.
No idea. We'll figure it out if we come back to that.
Okay.
All right. So this is for listeners who are potentially buying or potentially selling.
Okay.
Give me your top tips for buyers. Give me your top tips for sellers.
Okay. Buyers, number one, talk to a lender, right? Get pre-approved before you start the process. I see people all the time who go out, start looking at homes, or they're on Zillow looking at homes, and they think that, oh, well, I can probably afford this, or they use an online calculator even. Doesn't mean you're going to qualify for that. And I've seen people, I've shown them homes, and then all of a sudden, I push for that pre-approval, and then they can't afford it, right? Now their heart's broken because now they were looking at $600,000 houses, and they're like, oh, this is so nice. And then they find out that, oh, we can only afford 500. Well, guess what? That's not as nice a house. Now your heart's broken, right? Or if you start trying to look too soon before you're pre-approved, you fall in love with a house and then it's sold, right? Or it goes under contract right away. And then you're like, oh, I'm never going to be able to find that perfect house again. So both of those are, number one, talk to someone, get pre-approved, and make sure your finances are in order. So obviously your credit's got to be good. You want to have your savings in place, or know if someone in your family's giving you some money or something. But I think that's the biggest thing for buyers, is just know what you can afford. Maybe don't borrow everything you can afford. I mean, that's another piece of this too. Right now rates are higher, so it's tough. It's really difficult to pay that monthly payment.
Yeah.
But I love working with buyers because there's so much excitement about it.
Yeah.
Right? Like it's fun to go look for homes, especially first-time home buyers. Oh my gosh, like the dream of this is our new
It feels
home.
incredible.
Yeah, it feels great to go out and see something, and like you're buying. It's the American dream to own a home. So it's fun to see that and be a part of that. So I absolutely love working with buyers. Yeah, that's the biggest thing. I mean, I think it's so funny because a lot of buyers will be like, we have to have this, we have to have that, and we have to have the other thing, and then they end up buying something totally different. So I do suggest that you start with kind of like, we need 3 bedrooms, we need 2 baths, the basics of what you need. But sometimes they get caught. They won't even look at. I mean, I even did this when I bought a house when I moved to this area. We had 2 dogs, and we said we have to have a 6-foot privacy fence. We wouldn't look. We told our realtor we're not going to look at homes that don't have a 6-foot privacy fence. Well, then we weren't finding what we wanted. We went out on a weekend. We went to a new builder that had split rail fences in that neighborhood, but we fell in love with the house. It had the pool. It had all the things in the neighborhood, right? And so we bought what we told our realtor, don't show us these.
Yeah.
So I think of that all the time. Like realtors will say buyers are liars. I don't think that's true. I think buyers don't know until they see.
Well, and this is the value of a good real estate agent. This place, I mean, this is commercial. It's not residential, but I wanted a warehouse.
Yeah.
I wanted a warehouse. And in my mind, I thought I was going to fabricate and put things together and make a warehouse like this really cool setting for a business.
Yep.
And instead we found this location, and this location is perfect. We're next to a lake. We have trees. I'm not next to freaking auto mechanics and other random
True.
shops that you would find at warehouse lots. Like,
this is a cool location.
I had no,
Great part of town.
the only reason I came here is because my real estate agent told me you need to check this place out.
Cool. Yeah. Perfect example.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And then sellers, I think the number one thing, if you're going to sell your house, basically when you sell your house, you want to sell it fast and you want to sell for the most money, right? And you want the least amount of hassle. The 3 things that it takes to sell your house fast and for a high price are location, which you can't do anything about. The house is where it is, but location's a big part of what you're going to get. And then the condition that the house is in, and then the price. So obviously the price affects it because you can set the price high. It's not going to sell. It's going to take longer to sell because your price is too high. But the main thing out of those 3 is the condition that your house is in. So this is the tip for a home seller, is really focus on the cleanliness of your house, and then just that everything is in good condition. The regular maintenance has been done. There's nothing that's broken or needs to be fixed. When a buyer comes into your house, they want to walk in and say, wow, I could live here.
Yeah.
Right? They don't want to go, oh, well, it's going to need new carpet. Oh, it looks like it's going to need new paint. They're making a list. Every one of those things on the list is money off of what they're willing to pay for your house.
I feel like there's a caveat here. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Okay.
If you go and improve things based exclusively off of your taste, then it's actually hurting you more than helping you.
Yeah. If you do something weird, bright colors, even crazy artwork, it's a distraction for a buyer who comes into a house and there's something wild on the, I've seen like Narnia murals painted in bedrooms and stuff like that. And it's like, okay, we're going to have to cover that, right? That's something I'm going to have to do. So paint that, if it's paint, just paint over it. You're moving, you can't take it with you, But anything like that, buyers stop and they quit thinking about them living there, and they think about who's the weirdo who's living here now. Same. That's why realtors tell you, like, take your photos off the wall of your family. People stop and look at the photo. Like, they want to know if they know you. They want to know who lives here, and they shouldn't be thinking about you at all. They should be thinking about, can I live in this house? I actually showed a house to a guy who worked with the guy who owned the house we were looking at. So we're in there, we're showing it, and all of a sudden he pulls out his phone and he's taking a picture of the wedding photo. Like, there's a wedding photo with the husband and wife on the wall. He takes a picture of it and then he sits down and he's texting. I'm like, what are you doing? He's like, I work with this guy. I'm sending him a picture to tell him I'm in his house.
Oh, that's weird.
And I'm like, don't do that, right? Like, this is so weird. Like,
well, it's also like he knows the guy well enough to, it's like, you don't want to cross that boundary.
Yeah. So it's weird. So that's why realtors say, like, so decluttering, when I talk about condition, that's also decluttering, staging. Too much furniture, like, if you have a couch and then there's kind of a chair that's in the walkway, get the chair out of there. It's going to make the room look bigger, stuff off your countertops, make the kitchen look bigger. If you have a toaster and you have an air fryer and you have all these appliances, a blender and stuff, looks like your kitchen is cluttered, but you get all that stuff put away, your kitchen looks
What if
very
it's
nice.
a Cuisinart?
Yeah, those add value. Yes. So yeah, and even just the little things. This is another thing that people don't think about a lot is like your front door. I think, you always hear about curb appeal. You show up and there's the lawn's freshly mowed and all this stuff. But what happens is you walk up to the door with your realtor, they're fumbling around with the lockbox. They can't get in the lockbox. And meanwhile, you're standing on the front porch and you're looking around and there's cobwebs. And, showed one, there was like a bird nest and there was a pile of bird shit. Right. So I'm standing there trying to get the lockbox and my clients are just sitting there looking at this pile of shit. And it's like, if they can't take the 2 minutes to clean that off, get the birds out of there, what else aren't they doing?
Right.
Oh, they're not doing the regular maintenance. So now even wipe down the front door, because I think people spend more time at your front door than you think. Wash the doorknobs off, all the little things, just so like that first step into your house is like, we could live here, instead of, there's bird poop out front. So there must be, we better check all the cabinets and make sure they're, they work, or the HVAC
or rat droppings or whatever.
Yeah, they're not doing the regular maintenance. They probably never switched the filter on their HVAC system. What haven't they done? So, anyways,
hey, tip for all you first-time home buyers: you need to change your furnace filter.
Change your furnace filter. That's honestly, this is the
4 times a year, not just once a year, 4 times a year at least.
Yeah. This is the dad in me, but I love first-time home buyers because I show them how to change their filter. Like at the final walkthrough, I'll show them how to blow out your sprinklers. Like a lot of times it's like, just hire someone. But if you ever had to do it, this is where you would connect to it. I love going through that stuff. And again, it's like, I'm a dad, and so I want them to like know how to care for their house.
Yeah.
But it's just that's a free value that I give to first-time home buyers.
I did remember my home brewing
Yes.
metaphor. The metaphor was, hey, there's a reason your home brewing club wants to refer business to you.
Yeah.
Because if you brewed a shitty beer, I doubt they'd want to refer business to you.
That's actually true.
Because being able to brew a good beer means, 1, you have good taste.
Yep.
And 2, you're able to follow a sequence of steps to perfection.
You followed a process.
You followed a process.
Yep.
Right? If you're not following that process and your beer comes out bad,
you're
then
cutting corners.
how are you going to follow another process well in terms of selling their house? Right?
Yeah. That's 100% accurate. Yeah. Home brewing, it's hard to brew a good beer. Anyone can brew a beer, but to do the full process, you've got to have a process. You got to follow all the steps in order and pay attention to details, temperatures. Even a couple of different degrees off can change the flavor of a beer. So yeah, that actually makes a lot of sense.
Nice.
I love it. I'm going to use that.
Yeah. Sweet. Well, I don't have anything else. Is there anything that we didn't talk about today that you feel like people should know?
No, I don't have anything else that I want to talk about.
Cool.
Yeah.
All right.
I think we covered it.
It's been a pleasure having you on the pod.
Yeah, this was super fun.
Thanks for coming.
Yeah, I'm glad to be here. Thanks to the crew. Everyone's done a great job today. This has been fantastic.
Everyone out there, yeah, thank you.
It's been a good time. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. If you guys like this, please like and subscribe for more. Tell your friends, tell your wife,
That's right.
whatever you got to do.
Whatever you got to do, tell them all. Shout it from the rooftop.
All right. Again, we got Andy Hawbaker here with Andy Hawbaker Real Estate.
Yeah. Yeah, that's right.
All right. Thanks, everyone. See you soon.